Now let's move on then to online safety. And the end of last week, Michelle Donnellan, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Tech, was on BBC Radio 4 talking about the current attack on end-to-end encryption in particular. And this has been the biggest argument as the online safety bill rolls through the House of Lords over the last couple of months. I, like you, she said, want my privacy because I don't want people reading my private messages. They'd be very bored. But I don't want them to do it. So that was her trying to establish a starting point. But then she went on to say, however, we do know that some of these platforms, they're hotbeds sometimes for child abuse and sexual exploitation. And she said, and we have to be able to access that information should that problem occur. I'd like to know why she wants to access that information, but okay, she says she does. The issue here is, of course, that this is a front, and the UK government has done very little over the decades to in any way do anything to stop child sexual exploitation, child abuse, the sharing of imagery online, and so on. What this is really about is making sure that anybody that's campaigning or in any way attempting to counter what government is doing, that those activities can be spied upon, because it's not just, as we were saying just before I went on my 2-week break in July, it's not just the online safety bill that is the issue here. It's also the upgrade to the Investigatory Powers Act. So let's just remind you what this is about. The tech companies will have to clear new security features with the Home Office before they're implemented. So this is what the government is going to do through secondary legislation. This isn't something that's going to go through Parliament for approval. This is secondary legislation. It will be laid in Parliament. And of course, if your MP is not actually there to in any way vote against it, it'll just go through as a matter of course. And since these things are laid at periods of time where generally people aren't in the House of Commons, it's really just a formality in practice. So anyway, tech companies have to clear new security features with the Home Office before they're implemented. And that means that even non-UK companies will have to comply with changes, and that including breaking end-to-end encryption. So it's not just the online safety bill that's carrying out this attack here, it's also this. Tech companies will have to respond immediately to notices rather than waiting for the result of any appeals. Data retention notices require the retention of communications data by operators. And technical capability notices are going to require operators to provide and maintain technical capabilities, enabling them to respond to relevant authorizations through the Investigatory Powers Act. And this means much more snooping on the general day-to-day activities of people, of individuals. And finally, national security notices would require the telecommunications operator to take such specified steps as the Secretary of State considers necessary in the interests of national security. So they can do anything to anyone at any time with respect to their online communications. And all they have to do is yell national security. Finally, the Investigatory Powers Act also specifies that those persons in receipt of a notice or any person employed or engaged for the purposes of that person's business must not disclose the existence or contents of the notice to any other person without the permission of the Secretary of State. So this all happens in secret and you don't get to know about it. Now, we were pointing this out before in July because there was a consultation going on that ended on the 31st of July. I hope everybody got their information into that. And we will keep you posted on what the outcome of that consultation is. And finally, on the issue of online safety, I just want to make the point that Scott Ritter is the latest person to have his YouTube channel or his YouTube presence taken down by YouTube permanently. This is a tweet that he sent out on the 11th of August saying, when it rains, it pours. The same day that YouTube deplatformed the Scott Ritter show, they deplatformed Ask the Inspector. This is a targeted effort by YouTube to remove/minimize my voice. And those are my guests and the people who took the time to ask probing questions about the pressing issues of the day. Those who are behind this should know you won't succeed. There's a vast social media world out there beyond YouTube. And for those voices who still use YouTube as the primary vector for your audience, consider this: conform or perish. If you're doing a geopolitical show and you're still platformed by YouTube, ask yourself why. and be willing to live with the answer. More on this later. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, David.
Well, it's very right. There's so many things are now prohibited by YouTube, and basically they silence the truth. And this is not what they were built to do, and this is not what their user base wants them to do. Ultimately, that will take them down.
Indeed. Okay.